to Valley Rat Chat. This week, we're going to start a series on iconic Valley restaurants. I put together a list of restaurants from the past, and we're going to give a mention to some of the newer restaurants that we have in the area. You have an assignment this week, and it's going to be a fun assignment, kind of like a scavenger hunt. I know everybody has that junk drawer in the kitchen. We're looking for old menus from some of these restaurants. We're asking that you dig through those junk drawers and see what you can come up with. See if you can find some of these old menus and email those to us, and we'll show it on Valley Rat Chat. There were 2 new videos uploaded this week. One was the Living History Park, and the other was Crystal Springs Park. Both of these videos were very important to me that I did them correctly. Please be sure to go look at those videos. I worked very hard on both of them. If you have not visited the Living History Park in North Augusta, please do so, especially when they're having a live event, when they are reenacting the time period. It's free entrance. There's no fee. The only thing you have to pay for are the items that the vendors are selling. Consider joining their membership. They have different levels, and the first one starts at only $20. Their website is colonialtimes.us. The Crystal Springs Park video was a very precious memory for the contributor, and I wanted to be sure that I honored that memory. That's important, that we honor special memories that belong to others, especially when they're in an historic context. Now, the Living History Park video that I posted, that is part of my Passport series. Passport, P-A-S-T-P-O-R-T, is a promotion from the Aiken County Historical Museum, and it's a little book that looks exactly like a passport, P-A-S-S-P-O-R-T. Each little destination you go is a historical location from the past. So it's pretty neat how they're doing that. But I think there's like 11 different places in the book that you can go. I have mine about 3/4 of the way filled up. Living History Park was in the Passport, and that was one of the destinations. Now, if you're going on the Beach Island Historical Society tour at the end of this month, there are 3 places that you can check off in the Passport book that's going to be visited on the tour. And that is Red Cliff State Park, the Audubon Society compound that they have out in Jackson, and the Beach Island Historical Society building. So there's 3 that you can cross off of your passport list just for going on the tour. We have on loan from a contributor multiple volumes of the Graniteville Bulletin. We have several issues from the 40s, a lot from the 50s, a big stack of the 70s, and a few from the 80s. So what I'm going to do is do a page flip of each one and mention any interesting articles that we have. I found one that was really neat that showed a photo progression of the construction of the Gregg Division. That was really neat. I'm going to zoom in on the photos so that you can see all the folks that's in the photos. Out of respect, what I'm going to do about names is if it's prior to 1970, I'm going to read the names. If it's after 1970, I'll read their first name and last initial. The 40s and the 50s were from a different time frame. It's going to be written from a different perspective, so just keep that in mind as you look through the articles. Articles and opinions that are presented on Horse Creek Legacy are not necessarily the opinions of Horse Creek Legacy, but it is being presented as historical. I chose YouTube as the medium through which I wanted to document all of the historical stuff because I love to make videos. I just like doing that. I've always enjoyed cameras, especially video cameras. But YouTube also is very organized as opposed to Facebook. Now, Facebook has its own uses, and I use Facebook more or less for a commercial for the YouTube channel. But the YouTube channel, you can very easily find the subjects in playlists. I just find it much easier to use that instead of Facebook, where you just scroll and scroll and scroll forever, and then you lose the thing that you just saw that you wanted to see. So that's why I wanted to use YouTube. Obviously, the most iconic restaurant in Horse Creek Valley was the Dixie Lee. Now, this was ran by Mrs. Lee Kreitzer and her family, and the heyday was in the 50s and the 60s. I have previously done one of the historic videos about the Dixie Lee, so be sure to go and look at that. It was a drive-in restaurant, and it was where everybody went to see and be seen. Now, I remember I ate at the Dixie Lee back in the 80s. They had really good hot dogs. I don't think I ever had anything else, but man, those were some good hot dogs. And when I was in high school, after every home game, the football team would go down to the Dixie Lee, and that's where they would eat after the game. If you have any memories of the Dixie Lee, please be sure to put that in comments below. And the Midland Valley Historical Museum graciously supplied us with a photo of their menu. And that's why I wanted to do a collection on here about menus, because when your restaurant goes away, that's a neat way to remember it as a historical moment, is with the menu. Burgers and Cream. That was on the corner of Anthony Drive and 421 in the building that now houses Ming Ming. Now, when Ming Ming came in, they did some significant construction, so the building has changed a lot. But in the 80s and prior, Burgers and Cream was just a little burger bar, and you could get ice cream in there as well. And I remember going in there often and getting hamburgers and fries. When I was going, they were putting the banana splits in a big styrofoam cup. I always liked it. They had windows all the way around, and you could see everybody driving down 421 and Anthony Drive, and it just smelled good in there. Do y'all remember that? And does anybody have a menu from the Burgers and Cream? If you do, get that sent in to us. I don't know anything about Burgers and Cream, who owned it or anything like that, but I will do some research because I want to do a historical video about each one of our restaurants. Now, since I talked about Burgers and Cream, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Ming Ming, because in its own way, it has a historical significance in the valley, as it was our first Chinese restaurant. One thing I like about Ming Ming, anybody that lives around here, there used to be a place in Augusta called Ming Hua off of Walton Way, and they had the most delicious almond chicken you have ever put in your mouth. They just had a special gravy. Well, Ming Ming's uses the same recipe that they used. In all of my travels, I cannot find any almond chicken that is as good as Ming Hua or Ming Ming, and I just love it. Here's one of my favorites. Of course, they're all my favorites because I like to eat, and that was the Country Connection. This was the restaurant of the 1990s. It was in Linwood, between Bath and Burnett Town. They had converted an old mill house into the cutest little restaurant, and each room was just filled to the brim with handmade crafts, and you could actually purchase any of those crafts if you wanted to. And then the main checkout lobby was kind of reminiscent of a Cracker Barrel, because the whole room was filled with candies, homemade items. I don't know, it just had a homey kind of feel to it, and I enjoyed the checkout lobby. They would bring tea to you in little carafes. They had some of the best sweet tea I've ever had. Now, a lesson on tea for the South. A lot of people say iced tea because worldwide tea is normally drank hot. Well, that's not the issue in the South. In the South, we're worried about, is it sweet or unsweet? And that's how it's ordered. Because in a restaurant, it's going to be iced. That's a given. But the issue is, do you want sweet or unsweet? That's just a lesson on tea etiquette in the South. Another thing that the Country Connection was locally famous for was that hash brown casserole. Oh my goodness. Now, Cracker Barrel has a hash brown casserole, but it is nothing compared to that homemade delight that they had at the Country Connection. You could go in there and you get a meat and 3, or if you wanted the vegetable plate, you got 5 vegetables. And yes, hash brown casserole and macaroni and cheese is a vegetable in the South. That's kind of an inside joke, but that's what it's considered because it's not meat. They also had an open-faced roast beef sandwich. That was my favorite. I'd get that and the hash brown casserole and some of that sweet tea. And I can't remember what else they had, but all of it was good. If anyone has a menu from Country Connection, get that sent in and we'll get it posted. The L&M Cafe. This was an iconic Valley restaurant. Now, back in the late 70s, it was housed in this building. And you would just pull up to the side, and they had a sheet of plywood leaned up against the building that had their menu items painted on the board. And you'd order what you wanted and they'd bring it out that side door. I don't think you could eat inside at the time. It was just strictly takeout. And then they moved to this new building, and it was there for a good while. Now, the L&M specialty was the Whataburger, and they also had really good fried chicken. I think they also had fish, fried fish, and things like that. But it's been a long time. I really miss the L&M. We used to order out from there a lot. Chicken Snack, the iconic chicken restaurant in Graniteville on the corner of Oskalga Lake Road and Ergel Street. They have been there for many, many years. They have always had a unique taste to their chicken. Now, to me, it's always seemed like that it was fried without being breaded. Now, that's just my interpretation of it, and I know that's not the case. But it just had a good, crispy crust to it, and I always liked eating at the Chicken Snacks. And you got the little basket with the chicken and the fries. I haven't eaten there in years, and I don't even know if they're still a thing. I heard they closed, but I don't know if that's the case. The Blue Top Grill, they are on Aiken Road in Graniteville that connects Canal Street to US Highway 1. Blue Top has been around forever, and I have eaten there several times. I really like their food. Blue Top is one of those restaurants where you can walk up and get it from the window. I guess you can still do that, or you can go in, and it is always, always, always crowded. I will be doing a historical video on the Blue Top, so if anyone is listening that's affiliated with it, just be on the lookout, because at some point Horse Creek Legacy is coming to talk to you. And if anyone has any photos or anything from any of these restaurants, that'd be fun to share as well. Midway Grill. This building was built in the late 80s. And when it was first built, it was a restaurant called Roosters. This was just a fried chicken restaurant, and it didn't last too long. I liked their chicken, but they ended up closing, and then Tammy and Dale opened Midway. And now Mr. Bill is the owner of Midway, and they have maintained the same menu all the way throughout. Midway is just iconic here in the Valley, because it's literally midway of the Valley. It's just a burger bar. They have hand-dipped ice cream, and then they have dinner plates, and here is their current menu. Jack's Grill. I will be doing a historic video about Jack's Grill. I have to do a lot more research on it, because until recently, I didn't even know where it was. Well, Jack's Grill was located it's Burnett Town now. I think it was Langley then. That's something else about the Valley. The addresses have gone wonky, and the little communities that we grew up recognizing are no longer. And most of the addresses in the Valley are now Warrenville, but now some of them even have North Augusta, Beach Island, and Aiken addresses. So it gets really messy when we're trying to figure out what's where and how to tell you what's where, because I'm going to give it to you from what it was when I was growing up and what I recognize. Now, Jack's Grill, I think, was considered Langley at the time, and it's across the street from what is now Lovo's Grill. It's on the corner of Highway 421, also called Augusta Road, and Burnett Street. And I just looked at Google Maps, and it's literally on the line between Langley and Burnett Town. And it was there before 421 was a 4-lane. The left side was Jack's Grill, and the right side was Baker's Paint and Hardware. Jack's was there in the 50s and the 60s, and the cook was Hoke Durden. And they had table jukeboxes where you could choose right there from your booth. The building was owned by Gerald Dennis and his aunt, and then they sold it to the Durdens. Now, I saw a comment on a Facebook page, I think it was on Warrenville Valley. Someone commented that the place across the street was Kurt's Market, and that Glenn had a motorcycle shop behind Jack's. Oh my goodness, one of my favorites was Ferrando's. I loved Ferrando's, and they opened that restaurant around 86. I'm not sure. That sounds about right. When he first opened, there was just one booth and a big table, and that was it. And Mr. Ferrando himself would stand back there and cook the pizzas. And he was Italian. He would throw the pizza up in the air and catch it, and he knew how to shape it, throwing it up in the air like that. And he was so friendly, and he would just talk to everybody that would come in there. We used to love going to Ferrando's. That was one of our things. We'd go to either Ferrando's or Pizza Inn over in North Augusta, and we loved it. That was a very special memory for me. But I especially loved Ferrando's because he would talk to everybody. It was fun going in there. It was a good atmosphere. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they added on the addition, and it was just a huge dining room then. And then eventually they have the two stores now on the north side of Aiken and the south side of Aiken, and the chain has done very well. Now, after Ferrando's moved to Aiken, the building sat empty for a long time, and then Lovo's Grill went in there. And if you haven't eaten at Lovo's, it's a great local Mexican restaurant. I just like the atmosphere in there, so be sure to go see Lovo's. I got a copy of their menu right here. They even have a little bar in there if you're interested in that sort of thing. But my favorite thing is when you walk in the door, there's a little drink cooler on the left, and they have those Jarritos drinks in there, which I love the pineapple. So I didn't get through all the restaurants that I wanted to get through. In the meantime, send your emails in of what restaurants you want to hear about, and we'll see what we can do about that. And until next time.